want your calls on have drivers gone too far when confronting eco-protesters. 0207 862 2222. Tell us what you think. Just Stop Oil activists were out again yesterday. They caused disruption in central London. Let's have a look at this. So they were confronted by angry motorists. A lorry here is nudging forwards. That's dangerous. One man got so furious, he then started, there we are, he's given a bit of a shift and a shove. He's looking to take the megaphone. He's going to stand, there we are, he's trying to push them out the way of the truck. He also at some point grabbed their placards. There he goes. He's busy, this guy. I'm assuming he's a driver. Fancies himself as a local hero. I don't see necessarily any crime in what he's doing. What do you think, Carol?
No, there's no crime. I don't know what these eco-protesters expect. You know, they've been doing this for over a year.
They expect the planet to actually survive the next 100 years.
Yeah, well, they should go to places that actually do emit the carbon emissions that are going to destroy the planet. It's not happening here. You know, people are frustrated now. They're fed up. The reason that the public are having to do that is because the cops stand by and do nothing. Cops who now have a whole raft of laws to be able to move these protesters, not even arrest them, but to move them, and they're not doing it. Like the megaphone there, that's illegal. You're not supposed to have a megaphone. And also the protesters have moved the goalposts. They are now being disruptive. They are now doing things that are fairly dangerous. And I look at those protesters, all of them are about 21, 22. They haven't got jobs. They look like they're all students.
But they might be on a day off.
But they're now engaging in what is extremely disruptive behaviour and civil disobedience.
How far can you go, though? If you're blocked in your car, can you give them a nudge?
Well, I mean, I don't want to see protesters or anyone else getting hurt. I don't want to see it. But what I also don't want is an entire city disrupted by a group of 10 people, businesses going down, ambulances can't get through, people can't get to work.
We've got the right to protest. We have the right to protest. And they are peaceful.
They're not peaceful.
Go on, Graham.
They are very peaceful people. Yes, they're doing it wrong. Yes, I believe that they should be dragged out of the way. They can do it in other ways.
Yes.
You know, oil is going to be a problem for the future, but it's not a problem now. I believe that this is all a bit of a climate con, that we're being sold this idea. People are making a lot of money out of the climate change stuff, and I think we're all being slightly conned.
Let's just have a look in terms of what you can and can't do. I'm going to show you a woman called Sherilyn Speed. And it's kind of wrong name for her, really, because she's going quite slowly. But she pleaded guilty to a charge of dangerous driving after this.
Out the way now. She's going to punch her up. Punch her up. My son is 11 and he needs to get to school. My son is 11. He needs to get to school and I need to get to work. So move out of the way. Move out of the way and let me get my son to school. Let me get my son to school.
Go on. Push him.
Actually, that's a bit scary, that.
It is scary, but, you know, you can see how frustrated people are now. You know, 25 years ago, when the climate change battle started, you know, the goal was to save people in the poorest countries like Africa. These kids aren't bothered about that. No, they're bothered about themselves, and that is the problem. They're worried about the planet for them. They're not worried about poor countries.
Let's bring in...
And we're now... Let me just...
I know you're both sort of saying the same thing here. I'm going to bring in James Harvey from Just Stop Oil, because I think James might disagree. James, what do you say to that? That it's a lot of this is a climate con, say our guests.
Yeah, I can't believe that you're actually airing people that think the climate crisis is a con or a hoax. I mean, you've got ordinary people suffering around the world at the moment, and in the UK as well. We've got, where I live in the east of England, we had drought recently. This isn't a con. This is happening right now. And we're asking for a very reasonable thing, which all political parties, apart from the Conservatives, support, which is no new oil and gas.
But climate change has been going on throughout history. If you look at the sea level rises in Rome and Britain, they were like 50 feet or so higher than they are today.
But the science agrees with our guest, doesn't it?
Well,
I mean, I know you're not a scientist.
I'm not a scientist.
The massive preponderance of science says that the climate is changing and the change is man-made.
It's changing. It's not man-made.
Go on, Carol.
There are many countries all over Europe have been tackling climate change for decades now, as Britain has. Britain is responsible for 1% of global emissions. Why aren't you conducting these protests in the countries that really are belching out carbon?
Let James answer.
Do you not think we ought to fix our own house first?
No,
I mean,
our house is being fixed. I said, well, you will never answer. You guys never answer the question. I said, we're responsible for 1% of carbon emissions. So, why don't you go to China that's belching out 19% of the world's carbon emissions? Go there.
The government wants to open over 100 new oil and gas fields in the North Sea. They're already opening a new coal mine in Cumbria. We're taking us back to Victorian times. The way they account for emissions as well, 1%, look, we've outsourced all our manufacturing production to places like China. We're not counting aviation and shipping in that. So those figures, I'm sorry, I'm not on board with those figures. We've got a responsibility historically.
Hang on, Carol, it may not be practical for them to block the road in China because they might be executed.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that makes it quite difficult.
So they do it here and they disrupt people's lives here. Do you really think what you're doing, blocking a road, is actually going to affect climate change? Do you really believe that?
Well, it's not going to affect climate change, but it could affect policy. It puts pressure on the government to take action. We've got ordinary people in the streets. We've got doctors, nurses, we've got carpenters, we've got teachers, we've got students, we've got retired people. They're all asking for the same thing, which is no new oil and gas. And we've got people that are debating whether climate change is real on primetime TV.
We're not debating that. None of us said that. None of us said climate change was a con. None of us said
climate change is happening. That's a given, that's a fact. Whether it's man-made or not, I'm not too sure. What I would like to say is this. The working class of the north of England this winter couldn't afford to switch on their heating.
Yes,
I know people going cold and freezing, old-age pensioners freezing. We need to have the gas and the cheap fuel. I don't fly. I've stopped flying. I drive a car, which I typed into the ULEZ thing yesterday, and it said, because of the car you drive, you can come into London for free. Thank you for...
So it's one of these 1940s classics, is it?
No, it's actually a car that is so low emissions, it can go anywhere. I'm doing all this in a private way. You lot, I'll tell you this, I supported you up until you started going out on the roads and hindering working class people going about their business. And when you did that, you lost my support.
James.
We are you. We're you and you and you. We're doctors, nurses, plumbers, teachers, students, retired people.
You've really upset the majority of working class people.
And you're depriving
Okay, hang on, Carol, then.
You're depriving poor countries of cheap energy by doing what you're doing. We used to be able to supply cheap energy to countries. We can't anymore.
What do you mean coal?
I mean energy, cheap energy generally, and we can't do it anymore because of people like you who are stopping the production of cheap energy. You
want to go back to having bonfires in our gardens and all that?
No, of course I don't.
Okay, James.
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, we've got countries in the global south, probably that you're referring to now, where thousands of people are dying. One person every 36 seconds is dying in the east of Africa due to famine and drought caused by our emissions, our climate emissions.
No, not Britain's emissions, maybe America's, maybe China's, not ours.
Look, historically, we started the Industrial Revolution. We've got a massive debt of climate emissions to pay for. So there's these arguments about going to China. They're just utterly banal and boring.
All right. Let's bring a caller in. Order, please. John in Wiltshire, hi.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Now, who do you take issue with here? You've got two very different camps.
Yeah, I take issue with the protesters because they are causing a public nuisance and their actions are going to cause an accident that shouldn't happen, and the person that has probably run them over or supposedly done something, broke their arm or something, they're the ones that are going to get prosecuted.
Well, it sounds what you're describing somebody doing something deliberate, so yes, they would be prosecuted for that.
Yeah, but they're doing it. Well, the people that are causing that are the protesters. They are breaking the law. They are causing a public nuisance.
Okay, John, thank you. I mean, there is, if a driver responds by breaking the law because he or she is angry, the law's only going to take the view the driver shouldn't have done it. Phoebe in Northumberland, hi. Whose side are you on here, Phoebe?
Definitely on the general public side, drivers. I think that they're all doing this in the wrong places. They don't need to be disrupting the public at all. They can be sitting outside of executives, their workplace.
Yeah, but Phoebe, we've talked so many times about this with them, and they simply say no one will listen until they cause bother.
Not true. They've got us listening. We're listening, and we'll get behind them if they're doing this in the right place. You can't attack the public on this.
So James, stop annoying the public with your cause.
Yeah, and we've done that. We've been outside government offices. We've been outside big oil and gas depots. It's really, really unfortunate. Well, it's awful that the public get disrupted. But we've got a long history of peaceful civil disobedience in this country that has brought about change. We could talk about civil rights. We could talk about women's vote. We could talk about LGBTQ+.
Please don't compare yourself to that. Don't compare yourself to people who campaign.
The climate crisis
rights.
Doesn't compare to women's suffrage.
It absolutely does not. There was a reason.
The climate crisis.
This guy and his lot aren't going to change anything. All they're doing is annoying the public.
Okay.
You blocking a road is not going to make any.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Every political party, apart from the Conservatives, agrees that we need to stop new oil and gas.
Yeah.
And when they get into power, they'll forget it.
Yes,
that's the thing, whether they believe that when they take power. James Harvey from Just Stop Oil, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Wow. That was lively. Thanks for your calls. We're going to change subject after the break. Should cops be called in when there are big restaurant no-shows? It's a bit of a hoax.